Hey, how you doing, everybody? This is Matt from the Matt Night Show. Now, the internet and the country is going crazy about what just happened in Minnesota, in the state of Minnesota, particularly Minneapolis, just yesterday, right? So let's kind of look into the headline. U.S. immigration agent fatally shoots woman in Minneapolis, right? So there was footage of this. I don't want to show the footage. I know a lot of people have been showing it, but just out of respect for the family, I don't want to show the footage. But we can kind of show some of the aftermath, people recording it, recording some of the ICE agents after the incident. So let's run that footage.
Shame! 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 Shame!
So I know a lot of people have seen the footage already. And if you haven't, you can go look at it different on YouTube or any place like that, Instagram, wherever you get your media from, right? But it was pretty tragic. It comes to find out she was a U.S. citizen, and it kind of created all this outrage. Now, typically when these kind of things happen, there's an investigation. Maybe it might take a few days, a few weeks. But what did Kristi Noems have to say? Because she came out and had a statement literally within an hour of this incident happening. What did she have to say about it? Let's run that clip.
People need to stop using their vehicles as weapons. This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism because it's clear that it's being coordinated. People are being trained and told how to use their vehicles to impede law enforcement operations and then to run over anybody who gets in their way while they go out there and try to disrupt peace and public safety. And Americans deserve better.
So let's get this right. So you had an ICE agent kill a U.S. citizen. Now, we don't necessarily know why her car was blocking it. That would come out later. We don't know what was happening. If you watch the video, the officer was close to the car. It doesn't really appear that she was trying to hit the officer. But typically in these kind of situations, if a car is leaving an incident, most officers are trained not to shoot to kill, right? Because what happens if you watch the footage, as soon as she gets shot and she dies, her car crashes. But what does Kristi Noem, who obviously is the head of the Homeland Security, what does she have to say? She says, hey, it's this person's fault. It's the victim's fault. She was using her car as a weapon. Typically, there's an investigation. There's no body cam footage. They're just going out there with their talking points and just blaming the victim without any due process. And I think that's the worst part. And this caused a lot of outrage, first of all, by the incident itself. And two, a lot of people are on edge with ICE agents anyway. But after this incident, it got really crazy. Let's see what the mayor of Minneapolis had to say about this. He had some very strong words for Kristi Noems and particularly ICE. So let's run that clip.
I have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite.
So after this incident, it created tons and tons of outrage, right? And tons of protests. And this created more conflict with the local authorities there, as well as conflict between the citizens, whatever the case, right? So these ICE agents, he's pretty much saying, hey, you came in, you created all this tension, this conflict that our local authorities now have to deal with. And it led to huge protests. Look at this. Just a few hours after the incident, this is in Minneapolis, man, they kind of came out. It was minor protests all throughout the rest of the country. And, it really kind of got out of hand. And you want to know, all this stuff is happening. What is the president of the United States saying about this? So he did say something on his Truth Social. Let's see what he said. Of course, he's going to be the voice of reason, right? Of course not. So let's see what he said. I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming, obviously a professional agitator. There he goes again. And the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently and willfully and viciously ran over the ICE officer. She didn't run him over, but okay, Trump, who seems to have shot her in self-defense. Based on the attached clip, it is hard to believe he is alive. but is now recovering in the hospital. The situation is being studied in its entirety. But the reason these incidents are happening is because, here he goes again, the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They're just trying to do the job of making Americans safe. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from the radical left movement of violence and hate. Now, I will say this. I don't have any animosity against the law enforcement officers and things like that. But I think what's actually happening is I think the Trump administration are using ICE agents to agitate the American population. I really believe so, right? These agents obviously aren't properly trained, properly prepared, and they're just kind of throwing them into these cities and it's creating tons and tons and tons of chaos. And despite what people think, they make it seem like, hey, Trump, Stephen Miller, all these people had this divine plan, this strategic plan, but I don't think this stuff is actually working out really well. I think it's all chaos, and I don't think they thought past the chaos. And even if they did have a strategy, these are not strategic people, and they underestimate the response of the American people. So this stuff is kind of, obviously blowing up in the administration's face, but they will never admit defeat. And if you ask Trump about this type of stuff, right? If you ask him what's going on, he's going to deflect. And remember what he said a few days ago. I'm going to run that clip one more time because I feel as if he thinks he has a mandate. So if you ask Trump, hey, why are you doing this? This would probably be his true response. This is something he said yesterday or a few days ago when he was talking about Venezuela. He was talking about things he was talking about with Greenland, all these other things. He talked about the voters. So if you ask Trump what's going on here in Minneapolis, the ICE agents, Trump would probably have this response. Run the clip.
That voted for me, yeah. Let me just tell you, the voters that voted for me are thrilled. They said, this is what we voted for.
Now, I'm talking to everyone, not just Democrats, but Republicans, even MAGA. Did you vote for this? Did you really vote for all of this? Be honest with yourself. So hopefully you liked the video and make sure you share, like, and subscribe. Take care, everybody.